The arena lights dimmed as Muhammad Ali stood alone in his dressing room, taping his hands with methodical precision. The championship bout against Joe Frazier was just 45 minutes away, but something felt off. The door burst open, and his trainer, Angelo Dundee, rushed in, face flushed with anger. "They're changing the referee again," Angelo hissed, keeping his voice low. "Third time this week. Now it's Williams, the one who disqualified Johnson last month on that phantom low blow." Ali didn't look up, continuing the ritual with his raps. "Doesn't matter who they put in there. Can't stop what's coming." "There's more," Angelo said, closing the door and checking for listening ears. "I just overheard Commissioner Bentley talking to Williams in the hallway. Said something about making sure the right man wins tonight and how boxing doesn't need a champion with his kind of mouth." Now Ali stopped, his piercing eyes meeting Angelo's. "They've been trying to shut me up since I changed my name. Since I spoke against the war. Nothing new." A knock at the door interrupted them. A tall black man in a press credential entered. Xavier Collins, the investigative reporter who'd been following Ali's career since the Olympics. Unlike most of the white press who vilified Ali, Xavier had always sought the truth. "Champ, got a minute?" Xavier's voice was urgent. He glanced at Angelo, who nodded and stepped outside. "They've changed more than just the referee," Xavier said, pulling out a small recording device from his jacket pocket. "I have a source inside the judges' room. 2 of the 3 judges were given specific instructions on how to score tonight. They're planning to rob you even if you dominate." Ali's expression didn't change, but a fire ignited behind his eyes. "Play it." Xavier pressed a button, and the scratchy recording filled the small room. Commissioner Bentley's distinctive southern drawl was unmistakable. "I don't care if he knocks Frazier down 10 times. Score it 7-5 Frazier at minimum. We can't let that draft-dodging Muslim keep the spotlight. The president himself called about this." Ali paced the room, his legendary verbal torrent momentarily silenced by genuine anger. Outside, they could hear the crowd's growing roar as the arena filled. 20,000 people who'd paid to see a fair fight, not realizing the fix was already in. "What are you going to do?" Xavier asked, tucking the device away. "We could take this to the press right now, but half of them are in Bentley's pocket anyway." Ali stopped pacing, a slow smile spreading across his face, the kind that had always signaled trouble for his opponents. "Oh, I'm still fighting tonight, but first I need you to make a phone call." He leaned in, whispering something that made Xavier's eyes widen. "Can you do that in the next 30 minutes? Ali asked. Xavier nodded, already heading for the door. "Consider it done, but what are you planning?" Ali's smile grew wider. "Something they'll never expect. Sometimes you gotta lose a battle to expose the war." As Xavier rushed out, Ali returned to taping his hands. The arena lights might be rigged against him, but the whole world would soon see the truth shining brighter than any spotlight. The crowd's energy was electric as Muhammad Ali made his entrance, dancing down the aisle with his trademark confidence, despite the cascade of boos mixing with cheers. Xavier Collins stood at ringside, press credentials hanging around his neck, frantically scanning the VIP section until he spotted her. Gloria Jenkins, the newly appointed federal attorney who'd been investigating corruption in professional sports. She caught Xavier's eye and gave an almost imperceptible nod. The call had worked. In the ring, Ali did his usual pre-fight routine, pointing at Frazier, predicting which round the knockout would come, playing to the crowd who either loved or hated him, but nobody could ignore him. Referee Williams gave instructions at center ring, his demeanor noticeably cold toward Ali while practically putting his arm around Frazier. "Touch gloves and come out fighting," Williams said, barely making eye contact with Ali. As the first round began, Ali immediately sensed the trap. Frazier charged forward with his usual relentless pressure, but every time Ali tied him up in a clinch, Williams would roughly separate them, using the opportunity to whisper warnings to Ali about holding that weren't being issued to Frazier. By round 3, the pattern was unmistakable. Every borderline punch from Frazier was considered clean, while Ali's counterpunches drew immediate cautions. The crowd began to notice, with scattered boos erupting when Williams paused the action to lecture Ali for the 5th time. "Keep your punches up," Williams warned loudly for the crowd to hear, though Ali's shots had been perfectly legal. Between rounds, Angelo Dundee furiously worked on a small cut above Ali's eye, the result of a headbutt from Frazier that Williams had ruled incidental. "They're doing exactly what we expected," Angelo muttered while applying pressure. "The judges' cards will be a joke." Ali nodded slightly. "Just keep the cut closed. I need 4 more rounds. In the press section, Xavier was methodically documenting every questionable call, every inconsistency in Williams's officiating. Beside him, 2 other reporters, both white, both from major newspapers, were beginning to exchange troubled glances. "You seeing this too?" one whispered to Xavier. "Been seeing it his whole career," Xavier replied without looking up from his notes. "Only difference is tonight they're being sloppy about it." By round 6, the arena's mood had shifted. Even fans who had come to root against Ali were growing uncomfortable with the obvious bias. When Williams took a point away from Ali for a non-existent low blow, scattered shouts of "fix" and "shame" echoed from different sections. Frazier, a proud champion himself, looked confused by the preferential treatment, fighting his fight but clearly not part of whatever scheme was unfolding. During a clinch, Ali whispered something to him, and Frazier's eyes widened momentarily before they were separated. In Ali's corner before the 7th round, Angelo was frantic. "They're going to stop this fight on that cut if you don't end it now. Judges have you down by 5 points already." My guy in the commission snuck a look. Ali took a deep breath, his eyes finding Xavier at ringside, who gave him a thumbs up. The reporter then discreetly pointed toward the broadcast booth, where Howard Cosell was staring down at his monitor with a look of growing outrage. "Time to show them something they ain't never seen before," Ali said, standing as the bell rang. As round 7 began, Ali suddenly changed his strategy, abandoning his dancing for flat-footed trading with Frazier. The crowd roared as the 2 warriors exchanged thunderous blows at center ring. In the midst of the firefight, Ali absorbed a massive left hook that sent him crashing to the canvas. The crowd exploded as referee Williams began counting with suspicious haste, reaching 8 before Ali had even fully regained his senses. But the champion rose, legs wobbly but eyes clear, just as Xavier slipped away from ringside and through the crowd toward the broadcast booth. 9, 10, it's over, Williams shouted, waving his arms dramatically despite Ali clearly standing before him, alert and protesting. The arena erupted in chaos. Even Joe Frazier looked stunned, stepping back rather than celebrating. He approached Williams, gesturing that Ali had clearly beaten the count, but the referee ignored him, raising Frazier's hand as ring officials rushed in to make the decision official. Up in the broadcast booth, Howard Cosell was in rare form, his nasal voice cutting through the pandemonium. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is a travesty unfolding before our very eyes." Muhammad Ali was on his feet at the count of 8, fully responsive, and yet referee Williams has made the unconscionable decision to stop this contest. Beside him now stood Xavier Collins, who had managed to work his way to the broadcast position. He leaned in toward Cosell, whispering urgently in his ear. Cosell's eyes widened, and he nodded before turning back to the microphone. "I'm being informed that we have shocking evidence of collusion among boxing officials to predetermine the outcome of tonight's championship contest. This goes beyond incompetence. We're talking about criminal conspiracy at the highest levels of the boxing commission." Down in the ring, Ali remained surprisingly calm as his team erupted around him. Instead of joining the protest, he made his way to Frazier, embracing his rival with genuine respect. "This ain't on you, Joe," he said loudly enough for nearby microphones to pick up. "You a true champion, but these men trying to use us both." Frazier, always a man of integrity despite his bitter rivalry with Ali, nodded solemnly. "This ain't right. I want to win clean or not at all." Commissioner Bentley rushed into the ring, red-faced and shouting for the microphones to be cut off, but it was too late. The broadcast was live to 50 million homes across America, and Cosell was just warming up. "We have in our possession an audio recording of Commissioner Bentley himself, instructing judges to score against Muhammad Ali, regardless of the fight's actual outcome," Cosell continued, as network executives frantically debated whether to cut the feed. "And now, in an act of desperation, they've resorted to miscounting a knockdown to steal the championship." In the crowd, Federal Attorney Gloria Jenkins was already on her feet, accompanied by 2 FBI agents who had been quietly positioned at the arena. They began making their way toward the commissioner's box, press photographers noticing the movement and following with flashbulbs popping. Ali, seeing everything unfolding according to plan, finally allowed a smile to cross his face. He climbed the turnbuckle, pointing directly at Commissioner Bentley as the officials tried to hustle him out of the arena. "The whole world is watching," Ali shouted, his voice somehow cutting through the chaos. You can't steal in front of 50 million witnesses. Xavier had made his way back down to ringside, holding up the small recording device so the television cameras could capture it. The crowd, now fully understanding what was happening, began chanting Ali's name. Even many who had come to boo him now united against the greater injustice. In the commissioner's box, Bentley found his path blocked by Gloria Jenkins, who held up her federal credentials. "Commissioner Bentley, I'm placing you under investigation for sports fraud, corruption, and civil rights violations," she announced, as a stunned silence fell over the nearby crowd sections. "I suggest you cooperate fully, as we already have substantial evidence against you and several officials." Back in the ring, referee Williams was trying to slip away unnoticed, but Joe Frazier himself blocked his path. "Man, you made me part of something dirty here," Frazier said, his disappointment evident. "That ain't right by either of us." Ali watched it all unfold from the center of the ring. His predicted defeat transformed into a victory far more significant than any championship belt. Sometimes losing the battle was necessary to win the war and expose the real enemy. 3 weeks later, Muhammad Ali sat across from Xavier Collins in a quiet corner of a Harlem restaurant, the championship belt, rightfully restored to him following the investigation, resting on the table between them. 57 indictments, Xavier said, sliding a copy of his newspaper expose across the table. The headline read, "Boxing Corruption Exposed: How Ali Outsmarted the System." Below it was a subheading, "Federal Investigation Reveals Decades of Race-Based Fight Fixing." Ali smiled, pushing the paper back toward Xavier. "Keep it. You earned the byline." Not many reporters would have had the courage to stand up against the whole establishment. Not many fighters would deliberately take a knockdown to expose corruption, Xavier countered, sipping his coffee. "You risked your record, your reputation, everything. Some things matter more than being undefeated," Ali said, suddenly serious. "They've been using those scorecards and crooked refs to hold our people back for generations. How many fighters never got their shot because of men like Bentley? How many champions were robbed because they spoke too loud or wouldn't play the game?" Outside the restaurant window, a group of children spotted Ali and pressed their faces against the glass, waving excitedly. He waved back, his face lighting up. "The commission thought they could control boxing forever," Xavier said. "Now 12 of them are facing federal charges, and Judge Harrison just ordered a review of every championship bout from the past decade." "And Frazier?" Ali asked. "How's he handling all this?" "Like a champion. He was the first to testify against the officials, said he wants your rematch to be the cleanest fight in boxing history. No asterisks, no excuses." Gloria Jenkins entered the restaurant, turning heads in her sharp federal attorney's suit. She slid into the booth beside Xavier, placing a thick folder on the table. "Gentlemen, I wanted you to be the first to know. The grand jury just approved charges against 17 more officials across 5 states. This goes beyond boxing. Football, basketball, even Olympic committees were involved in systematic discrimination." Ali nodded solemnly. "They couldn't beat us fair, so they rigged the game." "Not anymore," Gloria said firmly. "Your willingness to sacrifice that fight broke the whole system open. We've got officials turning on each other, revealing schemes going back 30 years. Xavier reached into his bag, pulling out a small tape recorder, newer and more expensive than the one he'd used the night of the fight. "Which brings me to why I asked you both here. I'm working on something bigger than an article. A documentary film exposing the entire history of sports discrimination in America." "With you as the narrator?" Ali asked. "With you as the executive producer, if you're willing," Xavier replied. "Nobody can tell this story better than the man who brought it all to light." Ali considered this for a moment, his fingers tapping thoughtfully on the championship belt. "On one condition, we don't just expose the past. We show the future too. The doors that are going to open now for all the young fighters coming up. Already ahead of you," Xavier said, pulling out a contract. "Studio approved full creative control. They want to call it The People's Champion: How Muhammad Ali Changed Sports Forever." Gloria checked her watch and stood. "I have to get back to the office. More depositions this afternoon. But I wanted to tell you personally, Muhammad, what you did in that ring was the most courageous civil rights action I've seen in a decade. You sacrificed your perfect record to expose the truth." After she left, Ali and Xavier sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the street outside where people from all walks of life passed by, many wearing Ali Speaks Truth buttons that had become symbols of the movement sparked by the fight's aftermath. "You know," Ali finally said. They thought they were just rigging a boxing match. They never realized they were fighting something bigger than me. When you stand up for truth, the whole universe conspires to help you. Xavier smiled, raising his coffee cup in a toast. To the greatest of all time. Not just for what you did in the ring, but for what you did to change the game forever. Ali lifted his own cup, but then paused, his expression turning serious. This is just round one, my friend. The system doesn't change overnight, but now they know we're watching. Now they know the whole world is watching. Outside, a group of young black boxers spotted Ali through the window. Their faces lit up with hope and admiration as he waved them inside, ready to share wisdom and inspiration with the next generation. Champions who would now fight in rings where the only measure of victory would be the strength of their character and the power of their punches. The real championship, Ali said as the young fighters approached, was never about the belt. It was about standing tall when they expect you to bow, about speaking truth when they demand silence. He placed the championship belt around the shoulders of the youngest boxer, a skinny 12-year-old with determination in his eyes, and sometimes about losing one fight to win 1,000 more for those who come after you. The boy looked up at Ali with wonder, touching the belt with reverence. Is it true what they say? That you knew you were going to get robbed but fought anyway? Truth is always worth fighting for, Ali replied, his voice gentle but firm. Even when, especially when, you know the odds are stacked against you. As Xavier watched Ali surrounded by the young boxers, he understood that the real story wasn't just about exposing corruption. It was about the ripple effects of one man's courage, ripples that would continue expanding outward, challenging injustice, and inspiring new generations to demand fairness, both inside and outside the ring. The greatest victory, after all, wasn't counted in knockouts or title defenses. It was measured in changed minds, reformed systems, and doors forced open that could never be closed again. The fight continues, Ali said softly, almost to himself. Always has, always will. But now they know we can see the scorecards.